Hi, everyone. This is another episode of I Am African podcast. And of course, I am your host, Liz, and I'm here with some incredible people. Today's topic is going to be African myths and misconceptions. We're going to address the Western narrative about Africa. We're going to address the common myths and misconceptions that we have heard about Africans and also talk about the challenges around that conversation and the stereotypes that we experience from poverty to the war nations in Africa and just the whole continent. We're going to address that. So I'm going to let my guests introduce themselves a little bit. We're going to start with God's love. God's love, go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
All right, hey guys, I hope you guys are doing well today. If you're tuning in, my name is God's Love, but most people might know me as North Love Official on social media. I'm an African myself, Nigerian to be specific, and been in the US since 2015. So it's gonna be 10 years soon. But yeah, that's all about me.
Wow. Okay. He had to put in the Nigerian part. But anyways, we have the Niger princess, the one that
Nice,
walks around and says, "It's me or no one
nice stuff.
else." She has songs written about her too. So this is very special. So we have my girl Chinyere, but go ahead and introduce yourself.
You did such a good job. I would really want you to keep going. You're doing
She's
Say
like,
I
tell
beg.
them more. She's
It's
like,
like
you've done it even much better than I could ever. Let someone else toot your horn.
God.
that's funny.
Hi everyone, I'm Chinyere. I am also Nigerian and I am Igbo. Been in Houston, Texas since 2018.
We have one big question, and the question for my guest today is what is the biggest misconception about Africa that you would like to address today? We have all heard anything you can think of. You can be in Africa and you hear things. You can be in the US, UK, anywhere in the world, Australia. You hear things about Africa. What is one big misconception that you feel like you need to address? I'll start with Chichi this time.
I've heard a lot. I've heard we live in the bushes. We don't have internet. We are a very poor continent. And all of this can be debated and depending on who you're talking to and where you're talking to. But what has really rubbed me the wrong way has been the generalization of Africa. And even amongst the three of us, we are two Nigerians here and you're from Congo. Everything about us is different. Our culture can be similar, but it's so different. Our food is similar, but it is different. Our languages are different. And you can't just group Africa as one monolith. It's not. No, we are so diverse, even within the countries themselves. Nigeria has several hundred tribes within the country, and you can't say one Nigerian is going to be speaking for the whole country of Nigeria, which is something I also want to make clear that just because I'm Nigerian, my opinions are still my own, and I cannot be speaking for the whole country of Nigeria. And even as we are here, we can't speak for the whole continent of Africa because Africa is so diverse and everyone is unique. Every country, every tribe, we're all unique in our different ways, in our cultures and our traditions. And so it's very interesting to come here and say, I hear people say, oh, I went to Africa. I'm like, okay, where did you land?
Where did you?
Where did you land?
It's very interesting here coming here and hearing those things.
So, in the last episode, we kind of touched on this a little bit on identity, right? Defining the African identity. We talked about how Africa is a continent with over 50 countries. And what you just said about generalization, some of us went to high school here and we experienced a thing where oh, you're from Africa. You must know my friend from Morocco. That's for people that knew at least that Africa had more than one, it wasn't a country, but there are people that thought Africa was a country, not a continent. And that's some of those people are the ones that I see making those kind of generalizations "Oh, I went to Africa." Okay. I
Good for
like that.
you.
Exactly. I like how Chichi said, where did you land? Because I would like to know if you landed in Egypt. I want to know if you made it to South Africa, you know?
Yeah.
So, God's love, what is your thought? What are your thoughts? What is one big misconception that you want to address?
Everything that Chinyere had just said, I have heard and experienced every one of them. And another one is where they ask you if you speak African. I'm like, no, I can't speak a continent.
Who can't speak the South African Afrikaans?
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. But yeah, that and the false narrative that like they see on TVs that Africa is nothing but a very poor place. Everybody is hungry. I'm like, quite honestly, I don't remember ever like I was never in a situation where I felt like I was starving when I was in Africa. But to them, they always think like, oh, you're in Africa, you must need some kind of help. Like they just assume like you're poor, you know what I'm saying? That you come from very underprivileged place, which is not completely false because, of course our place is still less privileged than here, but it's not as bad as people think that it is.
It's actually very ironic because if we look at like Africa, it's a developing continent.
It is.
It's not poor. It
It
is
is.
developing because within Africa, especially my country, Congo, we have diamond. We have a lot of natural resources that could basically make us one of the richest countries in the world. But it's being exploited so much that the countries that are exploiting it are becoming richer and richer. And in my country, Congo, is becoming poorer and
And
poorer.
poor.
And whenever they go there, they steal the resources by using the people there to go and get the resources for them. Then they'll take pictures and post that online and say, "Oh, I went there for community service." And then people see that and say, "Oh, wow, there is poverty there." Congo is not poor. Congo is one of the richest countries in the world. But it's just because we don't use our resources correctly that makes us look poor. And that goes for Africa. A lot of countries, Nigeria with oil. You guys have oil. You could
Yeah.
literally distribute oil everywhere in the world. But guess what? It's not, those resources are not used correctly.
Yeah.
And it brings us like of a less competition to the Western world than a lot of these other countries. And so then we end up with a whole Africa is poor, is starving kids in Africa.
And our leaders, they are not helping either.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
as long as they and their family is taken care of, they don't care about the whole country itself.
Yeah.
So that is not helping because the same people that are exploiting them, which are foreigners, all they have to do is just pay our leaders a portion, just a little percentage. And as long as they get their share, they don't care what happened to the country. So I think that's part of the problem that's hindering us from developing as much as we could.
Agreed. So I have a question about like just Nigeria in particular. I have heard some misconceptions about Nigeria and the concept of the Nigerian prince
Yes,
because that
I was
is
gonna say
very
that too. I was gonna say that, but yes.
I've always wanted to address these misconceptions about Nigerians, right? There's this whole idea of the Nigerian prince. And I feel like this is a good opportunity for you guys to address that misconception because it's been generalized that when someone meets a Nigerian, they have that question in their mind or they have that thought. And sometimes people will say to me, like, "Are you Nigerian?" I'm like, "No." Like, okay, like I had a question about the Nigerian prince, or like we've talked about, I mean, cybersecurity, we do cybersecurity training, right? And we'll give an example of a phishing, and someone will say, "Oh, yeah, like Nigerian prince." And I'm like, okay, can we talk about this? Because, like, coming here from Africa and then
Yeah.
hearing this happening here, I was in shock. So, as Nigerians, what goes in your mind when people talk about this whole Nigerian prince thing?
So first off, to whoever is watching, not every Nigerian man is a prince. That is not a thing. Not every freaking man is a prince or a king. Not all of us are born into royalty. But yes, that is a misconception I've heard a lot over and over again. You introduce yourself as a Nigerian, they're like, "Oh, are you a Nigerian prince?" I'm like, "No, I wish," but I'm not sure where they get that idea from. Remember what we talked about yesterday when we're like the TV, they are very biased on what they choose to show people. So I think that still plays a role into it because back in the days, whenever they're making any form of Nigerian movie or whatnot, it's always gonna be king, like kingdom type of thing, king,
Mm-hmm.
white, queen, prince, all that stuff. But that is what, they know. And that was what I was telling you yesterday. So people that live here or people that live outside of Nigeria, they know life as what they see on TV.
Yeah.
To them, life begins and ends with where they are and what they see on the media. So if you keep pushing this narrative to them, they're going to think that that is really our reality back there when that is not the case.
Interesting. That's a really good point,
I
Chichi.
like I like that perspective to the question. So I'm glad you addressed that God stuff, but I also want to address the um Nigerian prince in terms of cybersecurity, in terms of scamming, in terms of
Yeah.
419. I didn't even know that was a term until I came to the US.
Same.
Because in Nigeria, we call it 419. It's a whole different term. I guess every
Yeah.
country has their own term for addressing scamming. And so coming here and doing cybersecurity as a master's degree, and then I'm hearing Nigerian prince, and I'm like, what is that?
So you're into cybersecurity as well.
Yes, I
Okay. So I'm just the foreigner here.
the Nigerian prince lingo. Fortunately, no one has been brave enough to come straight to me and tell me to my face about the Nigerian prince. I would say I've locked out on that. But I've heard stories of people coming up, walking to people and saying, I'm trying like start up conversations about the Nigerian prince thing. And I would say every country has their good folks and their bad folks. We can pick up any country and you would find criminals there, but you'd also find people, making change in the world there. And unfortunately, Nigeria is also one of those countries. And so we do have people that are bad folks and are bad agents, as we say in cybersecurity,
Yeah.
and they are out here, trying to make money illegally, scam people out of their hard-earned monies. And so it has taken a life of its own where Nigerians are now being used
They've
as
given
the
us
face.
a bad name.
Yes, we're now the face of scammers and face of scamming in the Western world. But I want to say that not every scammer is a Nigerian.
Exactly. I mean, my Facebook recently was hacked, and
Yeah.
it wasn't Nigerians. At this time, I think it was Indians. And in the I don't know if you guys know, but like in the scamming world now, Indians they are coming up there. I don't know why, but
A
there
lot.
is
It's
a lot of
increased.
Indian scammers now.
Mm-hmm.
But
It's
unfortunately,
increased.
Nigeria is still the face of it. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's like we what can we do? We just have to run with it and try to change the narrative. And as much as we are trying to tell people, hey, Nigeria is not the only country scamming, like there are other bad actors out there. I still have to admit that our Nigerian people
Yeah, and it's
that's
happening
what
every.
they
It's,
do.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Something, and they're good at what they do. Sometimes they get caught, sometimes they don't. But yes, it happens. There are some Nigerians that are, doing this bad thing, scamming people out of their money. But sometimes people, I've heard other country people scamming and claiming that they are Nigerians so that, Nigeria just keeps getting the bad rep. And it's
Yeah.
annoying, but what can we do? We just have
Mm-hmm.
to, we the reasonable ones, we just have to, keep showing out and
just
showing up for the
just do your
country,
part.
do your part and show that this country is not just all full of bad eggs. There are, and if you go online and look, there are so many articles written about how Nigerians are so educated, doing the good
Yeah.
work in the Western world, and they're like leading positive image. They're like the face of positive images too in the Western world. So we just have to do our part, and there's nothing we can do. We cannot, as we say in Nigeria, you are family. We cannot throw you away.
I'm telling you.
Exactly.
Speaking of family, even one time we're not family, but like one of my friends from Nigeria tried to scam me. I'm like, bro, it's me.
Right?
But yeah,
People do get desperate. I'm glad, Chichi, you brought up the fact that like Nigerians are making impact, like they are making positive impact anywhere they're actually in the world. It could be in Canada, US, UK, like anywhere. You guys seem to be some of the most educated, very hardworking people. And I could actually apply that to the concept of Africa, right? People seem to always say, like, think that Africans are like uneducated people, they always need the extra step or the extra help. And it has caused a lot of issues. And that's what motivated me to do this podcast addressing Africa. I named the podcast I Am Africa because in the, like, at the beginning of humanity, we all know this. It all started in Africa and things broke apart. But at the end of the day, like, there are just so many things about Africa, being African, that you go through that a lot of people don't like to address because some of it could be very sensitive. And I just decided, I said, I'm going to take that risk. Let's have these conversations that can be uncomfortable. And there's just a lot of misconceptions around Africa, African people, African cultures, African food. And those are all topics that we're going to address later on. But I'm glad that we can sit here and address some of the misconceptions. But while you were talking, something came to mind for me. There is this whole concept of when you're eating food and you have food left, you know that you're not going to eat the next day. If you throw away that food and you're around Americans, they'll say, "What? Why would you throw away the food? You need to save the food. There's starving kids in Africa." I grew up in a refugee camp and we were very poor. But there was no one day that we didn't eat because we, like, if you're not making money, you are farming and trying to provide for yourself. My parents, like, worked really hard as farmers to make sure that if we don't have a roof over our head, well, we at least have something to eat. And so the whole idea of there's starving kids in Africa, like, it's very rare that I see that unless they're like homeless or orphans. But even that, like, they've been building around, like, making sure that those children are taken care of. So I want to know, like, what are your thoughts on that whole idea of, oh, don't throw away the food, the starving kids in Africa? What are you going to do the food? Are you going to send it to Africa so the kids can eat your leftovers? Or, like, what do you guys think around it?
I think it's the God's love was talking about media representation in the West. There's also the talk of, we can translate this to poverty tourism in Africa, which is also a thing where people go to Africa and take pictures with poor kids, displaced children, and oh, I'm helping people in Africa. Yes, you can go there and you can help. And sometimes I feel like when you do things like that, it's more for your benefit, it's more to show how much of a good person you are.
for clicks.
Yes, for the clicks, for the clouds, versus you actually helping people. And so it's the media showing the bad side of Africa to the Western world.
Hmm.
And I'm happy that we're talking about these things. And I'm happy that we Africans have made a point to show the world that Africa is not all bushes and poverty and war
Jungles,
and
deserts.
jungles and lions and tigers and the safari. The safari is expensive.
It's
To
very.
go to the safari, it is expensive. Go do your research. And I'm happy with the whole, Afro Nation thing and Dirty December and celebrities coming to Nigeria and going to Ghana and so many other African countries and saying,
Hmm.
wow, you guys have skyscrapers. Of course, what do you think? Like, people are going to Nigeria every month, and then in December it just explodes because everyone wants to go home for Christmas. And like,
Hmm.
the
Christmas,
way
yeah.
Americans value Thanksgiving, it's the way Nigerians value Christmas. Like, we
Christmas.
all want to go home and go back, especially as Igbos, we want to go back to our villages and, all gather as a family and, just talk about the year, fellowship with each other. It's very interesting. Like, as you said, what are you going to do with the leftover food?
Exactly. Put it on a plane and send it to Africa.
Yes, there is a case for donations and charity because we are not going to sit here and say there's no war in Africa. There are
Yeah,
several wars going
absolutely.
on in Africa. There are several displaced people, but the way it's been talked about, it's not unique to Africa. There are so many homeless people in the US.
I've never seen as many homeless people until I came to this country.
Yes.
Exactly.
You
Yes.
know,
Exactly, because everyone, even people sleeping under the bridge, people homeless in Nigeria, in the morning, you won't find anyone there because in the morning, everyone takes up their bag, their businesses, whatever. They either hawk, they go do whatever they're going to do to make money for that day. And they come back. It's only at night that you will see them sleeping under the bridges. But in the daytime, they are hustling.
They go hustling.
They are trying to make money for themselves and leave that situation. But America, I've not seen the amount of panhandlers I've seen in America in any other country, and I've traveled. America has a stupid amount of people just being homeless, begging on the streets, not having a job. And the one that confuses me is when they say, "Oh, I'm a former veteran." Like, I guess, I mean, I can,
And that is very common
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
with their veterans.
Yeah, I can kind of wrap my head around it, but at the same time, I'm confused as to what is going on in this country. Like
Mm-hmm.
the homelessness crisis, because it is a crisis, and I don't even know if the government is really taking care of that issue.
Yeah.
Everyone is talking
Yeah.
about other policies, but no one is looking after the displaced. And it's Christmas, it's like it's December. It's cold in so many states in America right now. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder how
Yeah.
they are handling it. And so there are things like this going on here, but you hear more of they are starving
African.
kids in Africa. Even on Instagram, I go scroll through Instagram and I'm seeing some fund or some organization doing some raising some funds for starving children in Africa. Save a child, and I'm like, that is good. I'm not saying it is not good, but the
Mm-hmm.
way it is pushed to say that Africa is this fourth world, people were watched and third fourth world country that is
Mm-hmm.
so impoverished. Everyone is dying of diseases there. And I'm like, okay, maybe this is my privilege speaking. They're like, oh, malaria kills so many people. I don't know anyone that malaria has killed.
Me too. Not like if we're keeping it 100, I literally I don't know not a single person.
So maybe
That is
I'm
good.
also talking from my privilege, and that's why I said at the beginning of this episode that my opinions are my own, and I cannot
Yeah.
speak holistically for the whole of Nigeria or the whole of
Mm-hmm.
Africa. We are only going to be talking from our experiences, and so maybe we need to find somebody from maybe the South Sudan that's living in one of those displaced camps to come and to come and talk to us about it. But yeah, it's ridiculous to say that the whole of Africa is starving. We have billionaires in Africa.
Mm-hmm. Literally.
We have people that have left whatever situation that they are in Africa and become somebody and change the world. There are people that have been made, like movies have been made about them and their life stories in Africa. So
Yeah. Yeah.
are there poor people in Africa? Yes. Are there hungry people in Africa? Yes. But I don't see why Africa is the face of everything bad,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
which is how the media portrays it in the West.
Portrays it. And
Everything is, oh, everything bad, Africa. But if it's good, I mean, even sometimes, even when an African is trying to do something good, they'll go find a picture of him from the 2000s
and
Yep.
this and he'll be
when he
the
was.
one
So
trending.
when he was hungry.
Anyways, so I think
As a country.
so it's funny that you brought up the like bringing someone who actually lived in displaced area. Like my family left Congo and we lived in one of the like camps, right, in Zambia. And in my country right now, there's always war. There's been war since I was born, since the Rwandan genocide, since people know only about the Rwandan genocide. The aftermath of the Rwandan genocide started war in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And that war is still ongoing. And the Western world has kind of like shown it to be like, okay, there's only one region that is war prone, and that's the region that has diamonds. And you can see like people getting displaced, and there are people raising money to go and help that. But that doesn't make the whole country poor or the whole country like have nothing. We have people that are working hard every day. We have people that are successful. We have a lot of people that have done things, and people will always ignore that fact and focus on that one small region. I'm not saying nothing like it's wrong to focus on that, but it's not okay to generalize the whole identity of a country based on one thing that is going wrong. And it's good to talk about it, it's good to bring light to it, but it's not good to generalize or try to identify a whole country as that one bad person or as that one bad thing that's happening to them. And I think that's also what leads to like a lot of these misconceptions about the whole continent, is because there is already misconceptions about like the identities of the countries within that continent. It just like becomes a whole thing. Oh, if all of these countries are so bad, then the whole continent is bad. And we get to see a lot of that happening. And it's crazy. But I'm glad that we have this platform that we can talk about. God's love,
Yes.
did you want to say something?
No, she pretty much covered everything that I had in my head.
That Igbo connection.
I'm telling you, we
But
are
any
one.
Anyways, this is going to kind of conclude this episode. If you do have anything to say, please comment in the, comment whatever you want to. If you want to have a lot of conversation around this, please let me know. Also, remember to follow us on social media. We want to keep this conversation going. Share this with your family and friends. And of course, your American, UK, Australian friends, Canadian friends, anyone that you think needs to hear more on this topic. And also, start conversations and try to educate yourself and educate each other, because Africa is not a country, it's a continent. And there is so much beauty, there is so much like success, there's so much joy and happiness within that continent that we are limiting the continent and its people. And that is not okay. So I would like to take a moment to thank my guest today. God's love. Thank you for coming back. You definitely see Chichi back again as well. And thank you so much for joining and tuning in to I Am African podcast. I am your host, Liz, and I can't wait to see you next time. I'm not sure what topic we're going to discuss, but there's a lot of topics coming up. And one of them is going to be the juicy, juicy topic around the African battle between African Americans and Africans. You don't want to miss that, so I can't wait. But anyways, we'll see you next time. Please remember, follow, subscribe, and share with your friends. All right. Thank you